he was so instrumental in my career starting, which is Keenan Ivory Wayans. And Keenan, a couple of times, kicked all the writers out of the office for the day. He says, I want you to get out of this office. I want you to go sit in the park, go to the mall, go to the movie, go live some life today. Because you cannot write from a vacuum, from a void.
If you're looking for acting tips, industry insights, interviews, or just life lessons, you're at the right place. She is an award-winning TV writer, best-selling author, film, television, and live event producer, director, visual artist, inspirational speaker, stand-up comedian, mother and grandmother, and child of God. Please help me welcome Faye Griffin. Welcome! How are you?
Nettie! I haven't seen you in so long. So good to see you.
So,
oh my gosh.
When I met you, you were a single mom
Mm-hmm.
with 2 small children,
Mm-hmm.
and you were pursuing your writing. And during that time, because we were both at the same church,
Mm-hmm.
Oasis LA, which is a fabulous church,
Indeed.
you were really planting seed at the church as far as writing and being a writer in residence at the church and doing skits and plays. When did you decide you wanted to be a writer in the business?
I think I'm an accidental everything. And what I mean by that is with the stand-up, I hosted a Christmas program with Walter Tucker, who at the time, right before he became mayor of Compton, we went to the same church. Shout out to Bread of Life in Carson. Shout out to Oasis. Hey, how you doing? I shout out people. Because there's so many people that are part of the foundation of who I am. So I always want to pay homage. But anyway, so we hosted this little Christmas program at the church. And Walter said to me, he goes, my gosh, you're very funny. Have you ever thought about doing stand-up? And I was like, no, but like David Allen Greer would say, but I think I can now. Like to see it, here it go. And that's how it started. It was not ever a conscious thought that I should do stand-up. Someone suggested it, and I did it. And Living Color became the same way. My first writing gig in the business was the same way. I was writing, as you said, I was writing sketches for the children's church at the Oasis. Sonia,
for quite a few years. I mean, you were doing it for a little while.
I was there for a while, and I was also writing with the in-house theater company headed up by Penny Johnson Gerald, the Oasis Theater Company. I was a writer in residence and actress there. Sonia Rice, Elshonia Rice, or Elshonia Smith as she is now, was heading up the children's plays. And she said, have you ever heard of a show called In Living Color? And I go, oh my gosh, that's, it was the hottest thing going at that time. It was into its 3rd season by then. And I go, that's my favorite show. And she explained that she had met with them and pitched them a couple of seasons in a row. They had never booked her, but her agent said, maybe if you go in with a partner. And so she said, do you think you'd be interested in writing on The Living Color? I'm like, sure. And again, accidental. It wasn't intentional. I was quite content writing, plays and skits and illustrated sermons for Pastor Philip and getting rejected by every publisher because I thought I was going to be a children's book author. That's the thing I should say. And so I have all these rejection slips from probably every major publisher in the world. They weren't buying stories that had African American kids.
What was that experience? Your first job in the business, yes?
Mm-hmm.
You book In Living Color. Well, I shouldn't say your first job because you were doing stand-up.
Well, I was at PBS, my day job.
Okay.
Because, stand-up was not feeding me. So I was actually working at KCET. I was a welfare mother. You said I was a single mom, a divorced mom. Absolutely. Got a job in the member services department at KCET, which is the PBS station here in LA. And I was there almost 7 years, working my way up the food chain. I became a secretary, I became a coordinator. And I was on track to be a manager. And I actually turned down a management job because I felt there was somebody who was better qualified than me. And everybody thought I was crazy. It's like, why would you give up this opportunity? You've worked hard. They're going to give it to you on a golden platter. But something in me said no. And within 2 weeks of saying no, Sonia came to me and said, have you ever heard of a show called In Living Color? So I left KCET, which is technically my foray into entertainment, and went into the Fox Diversity Writing Program with Sonia. and
Oh,
life-changing.
so you did that first before In Living Color?
No, that was In Living Color. We were assigned to In Living Color.
Oh, okay.
Through the and they
So
had.
tell us about the
process?
20th Century Writers Program.
I wasn't familiar with it at all. I didn't know anything like that even existed, and I think it was a budgetary thing because we did not apply for the program.
So they
Felicity Hoffman, they probably did. They did a little Felicity Hoffman and got us in the program in the back door.
So they wouldn't have to pay you.
So they wouldn't have to pay us
the regular fee.
Staff,
for
yes, Writers
it.
Guild rate. And so what happened was they had 13 weeks with us as trainees, and then after that 13 weeks, they could say yes, we want to staff them, or no, we don't. We were there 2.5 weeks. Keenan said, staff them. I want them. They're amazing. Staff them. So we didn't even finish the program. We became staff writers like our 3rd week there, which was amazing. To your question, how was that process and how did it impact me? I became hell on wheels. My head got this big. I was so egomaniacal. It was not even. I was writing on a hit show, the hit show, and I had no real Hollywood experience. PBS was not Hollywood. I went from wearing pantyhose to work every day to coming to work in jeans and had a corner office, not a corner office, but a big office. And I was a mess. Pastor Philip asked me to write a sketch during that period. And I told him flat out, I don't write for free anymore. And I was deadly serious. So yeah, I was a mess. I was a mess.
Don't hit her, Lord. Don't hit her.
Lord, I was dropping names. The tide turned when my mother had a backyard picnic and did not invite me and my kids. And I found out about it, and I was so hurt. And I was like, why didn't we get invited? She said, because no one wanted to hear you drop names. Because I was a name dropping so-and-so. And I'll tell you, I was talking to Keenan, and David Allen Greer walked in. And so I said, have you seen Jim Carrey? I was like that. And everybody's like, and they had enough of me. So yeah, I was a mess when I first started. I didn't know any better.
So that first year in Living Color, what did you learn? I'm assuming there was so much that you gleaned from, first of all, being one of the few women, because I'm assuming it was just you and Sonia that were...
There were 4 if you count Pam Vise, who was a head writer at the time. So there's Pam Vise, there was Nancy Neufeld, and then there was Sonia and I. We were the only women that first season that we were there. I think Nancy was there when we got there, but we were the girls. We were the girl writers.
Okay.
And so the very first thing that I learned is that there is no respect for girl writers. One of my heroes is Madeline Pugh Davis, who was the co-writer of all of I Love Lucy's shows and everything that Miss Ball did. She was, and her autobiography is called Madeline Davis, Girl Writer. And a lot of the challenges that she had, we experienced as well. The sexism was off the charts. We were regularly, I don't want to use the language, but we had a nickname by a particular head writer, who I will not name, Les Firestein. He called us the cunts. Hey cunts, come on in. We're going to the writer's room. What are you cunts doing? That was our nickname. And I was so naive and so young in the business, I did not realize that was unacceptable. I thought that was,
normal. Yeah, because as a woman, you don't want to make waves. You just ride it out.
I mean, I had given up. Let me tell you what I gave up at KCT. I was tenured there, if you will. I had a pension fund. I had a retirement plan. I had full health benefits. And and they loved me there. I could have stayed there. I had a fellowship to WGBH in Boston. They sent me to do this fellowship in marketing. I mean, they were Team TFA, and I could have stayed there. I could probably still be there today. So it was a big risk for me to take, to leave that job and go into a training program that might last 13 weeks. Mm-hmm. So when these things would happen, as you said, I didn't want to rock the boat initially, but eventually I rocked the boat really hard.
So you weren't treated like a regular writer because you were a girl.
Because we were girls.
So you wrote girl sketches? Is that what?
No, we fought and we pitched what we do. We pitched what we thought were funny. They tried to say, well, you guys write for Allie and Kelly and all and Takia. you guys write for them. I'm like, no, we got stuff. We were instrumental in helping craft Ace and Main Man, which is two characters, franchisable characters that Jamie and Tommy Davidson did. You know, they were the kind of homeboys that were working as security or, you know, whatever. And Tommy, actually, his character was kind of like, you know, twitchy. And so Sonia and I were helpful in helping craft those, you know, so we had the chops. There's a comedian that I love. His name is Jay Phillips. He's one of the good ones. And Jay Phillips said to me once, he said, "Damn, T-Faye, you write like a dude." And I was like, "Thank you." And I was like, "Hey, wait a second. What's that mean, you write like a dude? Like writing like a guy is supposed to be the standard of greatness and excellence? No, I write funny is what I do." That was the challenge, is being the girl writers. Also, my Christianity, my flat out living for the Lord became a issue for certain people. So I got the reputation of being the church lady on top of it all.
What is something that you learned in the collaborating process, or was it a collaborating process in that writer's room?
We pitched a lot of material. Here's the process. You, as a single writer, as a team, you would pitch anywhere from 10 to 50 ideas a day. Sometimes we were having 3 pitch sessions a day because we were just eating through material. And Fox's censorship standards were so much tighter and restrictive back then, so we couldn't do a lot of things we wanted to do that were very funny. But anyway, so you pitch the ideas. The head writers would go and they would pick the ideas, and Keenan, whatever, they would pick the ideas that they wanted to see drafts. They'd come back and go, "All right, we want you to do Jesus and Butthead," even though it was pitched by somebody else. You know, you get on that. That thing you pitched, do that. This pitch that he pitched, I'd rather you do that. So it was very much them kind of strategizing strengths. Mm-hmm. Like they knew that Sonia and I had a very, you know, we loved doing the music videos. We had a very strong grip on doing the music parodies. And so we often got assigned to those. Now, once you do the draft, they may come back and go, "Okay, that's good, but we're going to have so-and-so do the rewrite on it, or so-and-so to punch it up." Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so it was very collaborative. I'm going to be very, very frank. There were times that Sonia and I, our bacon got saved by some of the guys that came in and took some of the stuff that we did they felt was too soft and punched it up and made it a little harder. So, yeah.
You worked on In Living Color, and then you went to Parenthood after that.
No, I went back to welfare.
Oh, okay.
I went back to welfare. You know, I have 3 kids, not 2.
You have 3.
I have
a daughter
3 children
and 2 sons.
And a daughter and 2 sons. And shout out to Brandy, VJ, John. You know, I had to shout my peoples out. After In Living Color, Sonia and I went out on a couple of meetings, and she had a different direction she wanted to go in. I just wanted to be home. In Living Color was like 14-hour days, 12-hour days, 14-hour days. I'm raising 2 black boys in South Central Los Angeles in the 90s. I need to be at home. Mm-hmm. I need to be with my kids. So I made a decision to try to do drama because it was a less strenuous work schedule. Mm-hmm. I could do, you know. And so we decided amicably to go our separate directions, and she's still a friend to this day. And those jobs didn't come. I got sent out on stuff. I remember one particularly painful meeting where it was very clear that this man wasn't going to hire me because I was black. It was for Lonesome Dove. If my spec script was good enough to get me in the room, and then I walk in and you go, "Oh my gosh," my agent. I told my agent, I said, "You need to start telling people I'm black," because it kept happening. I would come in and they go, "Oh, okay, we didn't know." One development guy told me, he goes, "Well, I have to tell you, we have reached our quota on minority writers." What do you mean you reached your quota on? But anyway, be that as it may, I couldn't get arrested after In Living Color. You would think I could not get arrested. So I went back on welfare. I went on welfare. I was getting food stamps and working jobs under the table. I did phone sex. Yes, I did. I did phone sex. I worked for a life insurance company, processing death claims. I did all kinds of stuff. And then one day, Sonia calls me. And at that time, she was on the Parenthood, and I'm getting ready to cry because I cry every time I tell this story. And she says, "What are you doing right now?" I go, "Right now, I got laid off from the insurance company. The call came the day I got laid off. And I was in Baldwin Hills Crenshaw Shopping Plaza just walking around with the kids. And I said, I'm just in the mall walking around. She goes, I got you an outside script. On shows, they have a certain number of scripts that they would give to writers that were freelance or independent contractor writers. And I got a script. And I came in and I met with Laretha Jones, and I met with Robert, and I wrote the script. He says, if we come back next season, you'll be here at the table. And they came back the next season, and I was a staff writer on the Parenthood, and it just totally turned my career around. It was like my second chance. Every time I see Robert, I hug him up and just thank him for giving. So it's kind of a divine coincidence, if you will, that my first break, my big break was Keenan, my second chance was Robert. You know what I mean? I think that was some divine providence.
You had your first opportunity and then your second opportunity, and what did you glean from these jobs?
The biggest lesson that I walked away from, and also in between processing death claims and doing phone calls, I was also doing stand-up to the best of my ability. But what I learned by the time I got to the Parenthood, what I learned was to maximize my opportunities, maximize them by diversifying my creative portfolio. I heard Stacey Evans Morgan say that once, diversify your creative portfolio. So I determined that, not only can I write comedy, I can also write drama, I can also write books, I can also do stand-up, I can also write jokes for other comics. It's like all these skill sets. And so then I started creating this brand, Faye Griffin, that's when Words by Faye was born. It's, became Words by Faye eventually. But I became this entity that if you needed something written, funny, humorous, inspirational, whatever, you need a speech, you need a press release. I've been writing Sherry Shepherd's bios for almost 15 years. I read every time she needs an update of her bio or rewritten bio. She hires me to write her bio. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so I just started because I never wanted to be on welfare again, and I never wanted to lose my hold in this industry, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wanted to be a player, but if I'm not staffed, I still got something going on that was at least loosely
in the business
related to what I do.
So something you just said, which reminds me, a lot of who you are is using what's in your hand.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, going back to Oasis days, you took what was in your hand, which was your writing, and you were of service at the church. Mm-hmm. It reminds me of the scripture that says, if you're about my business, I'll be about your business. Yes. So you were planting seed in the church, and because you were planting seed, you connected with Sonia. Then you started to learn, what's in my hand is writing, and writing can take many forms. It could go from jokes to books to scripts to press releases, mm-hmm. to bios. It's writing. Writing is writing is writing mm-hmm. is writing. Mm-hmm. So I think that's important for the person that's watching this to know, because sometimes we will pigeonhole ourselves.
Yes. And you don't even have to pigeonhole yourself. Hollywood will do it for you.
So you don't need to help them.
You don't need to help them. I always say writers write. People say, well, T-Faye, what do you write? I go, writing. I write words. That's why I became Words by T-Faye. The only thing that I don't write are technical instruction booklets and grant proposals. I did one grant proposal. Hated it. But if it's words, if I don't know how to write it, I'm going to figure out. I'm self-taught. That's the other thing. I don't have a college degree. I barely got out of high school. Left high school at 17. My mother signed for me to go to the Army. I went to the Army. I was a cook in the Army. So I'm a self-taught writer. You can learn. You can teach yourself how to do just about anything.
Well, something else. You're self-taught, but you also have lived. And writing, I believe, most writers need to live.
Absolutely.
Just like artists, any artist, there's more depth. It being a filmmaker or editor or a camera person or whatever. If you've lived, your perspective is going to be so much deeper than someone who taught themselves by reading mm-hmm. something or watching a YouTube video and now they're doing it. It also has to have some life to it.
Absolutely. And you know, something that I love, I keep evoking his name because he was so instrumental in my career starting, which is Keenan Ivory Wayans. And Keenan, a couple of times, kicked all the writers out of the office for the day. He says, I want you to get out of this office. I want you to go sit in the park, go to the mall, go to the movie, go live some life today, because you cannot write from a vacuum, from a void. And so what you're saying is absolutely, you have to have a well of experiences and thoughts and philosophies to write from, and you cannot get that from just reading something or going to a conference or a webinar or whatever. Those help, you know.
Yes.
And I do continue to grow and to learn from other writers and so forth and so on.
Keenan's also a lifelong student.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you talk to him about stand-up or comedy, he knows every every act of a comic.
Mm-hmm.
He knows all the comedy movies. He really has done his homework and continues to do his homework.
Yep,
and
yep.
I think that's
Important.
also part of it.
It kind of matches up with my I can't pronounce it.
Philosophy.
Thank you. That. I have one, I just can't pronounce it. And my life philosophy is simply this: do today, do tomorrow when it gets here. And as we know, tomorrow never arrives. And what I mean by that is we have to stay in the moment. We can't go off, you know, so much stress and anxiety is caused by, especially in this industry, by projecting about next season or what's going to happen next week or whatever. If you stay in the moment and then gain an appreciation for everything that's happened, the fact that this pink blazer you have on is wearing me out. It's so beautiful. But it's taking the time to just appreciate I call it the magic of
Yes.
the ordinary day.
Yes.
Out of it, there are stories and stories and stories. Aesop, Hans Christian Andersen, these you know, famous writers, they wrote from a wealth of observation. Aesop paid attention to an ant one day, and then he wrote this story. He paid attention to a tortoise and a hare, and wrote a story that we're still telling hundreds and hundreds of years later, simply by staying in the moment and observing life and taking it in and experiencing it. And I believe that writer, you write here first. Television especially does such a disservice to creativity because everything's so formulaic. We know that we got 26 minutes and we need so many jokes per page, and you know, these characters do, and it's like template writing. It's like, I'm just filling the template. We know this character's going to do this. But beyond that, there's this whole world that you can create.
Right. And I want to go back to the template writing because, yes, you have a template, but it's the great writers that make it something else.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because sometimes people think, it doesn't take that much to do it, but you still need craft, you still need life, you still need to be funny or be able to see it from an angle that we haven't seen.
To the extent that Hollywood will allow you to. You know, that's why we have so many reboots. It's because nobody wants to go push beyond
we also have reboots because they don't want to pay. That's another part.
That's a whole other part of it. So do what we know works.
That's right.
Because we know we can afford that and we don't have to.
We own it. We own the scripts.
Right, we're just going to hash it out.
That's right. So you can't get created by.
Yeah.
You can't get written by because it's already been written. All you're doing is
doing the screenplay by.
You're just kind of cleaning it up. Getting back to writing, because you were writing plays and sketches. Yes. You then branched out and wrote a full-length play, which you produced yourself with Melody Cochran, Johnny's daughter.
Yes.
And
my bestie.
What was that experience for you?
Well, it wasn't my first full length. My first full length was for the Oasis Theater Company, and it was directed by Penny Johnson-Gerald. It was called The Christmas Club. But this was the first full length outside of the confines of the church. And it was lightning in a bottle. People often ask me, are you ever going to put Spook Night up again? The play was my indictment on the state of black stand-up comedy, which I felt and still feel has gone to a place where we are just putting the mics into the hands of anybody who's got 5 minutes, and they stole 3 minutes of that. And calling them comedians, and Comic View and the Def Jam culture kind of fed into that, but that's a whole other thing. The hardest part of it was raising the money, because it was a full-on production. We ran for 7 weeks. We did five performances. I had 2 casts, an A and B cast. So it was a huge undertaking, but it was such a beautiful experience, because the people I got to work with, the actors, Nika King, Steve Olson, Billy Brown, on and on and on, Alan Charnoff, Carrie Eman. Now that I'm naming names, I have to name everybody's name. It was just an amazing experience, a lot of hard work. But I sat in that empty theater the night we wrapped, and I sat there probably 2 hours by myself and just cried like a baby. I couldn't believe. We got great reviews. Everybody loved us except LA Weekly. They hate everybody.
Doesn't matter. You did it.
Where is LA Weekly today? I'm just saying. So Melody and her team, she had 2 partners that came along and financed it. So I didn't have to go out and find advertisers or anything. They just underwrote it. They were my angels.
What was your favorite thing of doing that piece?
There's so many wonderful moments, but I think it was the first time, Lydia, that it was, okay.
Go ahead, girl.
It was mine.
You didn't have to share with anybody.
After years of writing putting words in, I put words in Bill Clinton's mouth. I put words in Nelson Mandela's mouth. I put words in people's mouths and wrote the stories that they wanted me to write. And this was mine. And it was my point of view. It was my opinion. And whether you agreed with it or not, I didn't care, because it was mine. If you don't agree, then get up and get out. But I got to say what I wanted to say about a topic that meant and means a lot to me.
You not only are a prolific writer, but you also are a visual artist.
Mm-hmm.
And the last few years, I have seen you just blossom as a visual artist. What made you want to get into drawing and coloring? And
I had the pleasure and the privilege, the honor last year to spend 30 days in Nigeria, in Lagos, Nigeria, teaching film and producing in the business of film at the Del York Creative Academy there. I'd never been to Africa. I never had a desire to go to Africa, because I went to Jamaica once and they wouldn't let me out. They lost my passport. They wouldn't let me out. I'm like, I'm going no place where there's just mainly black people, because they keep trying to keep me. But I went to Africa, and something happened. I came home and I heard the Holy Spirit say colors, colors, colors. So I had some watercolor pencils, and I saw a picture of somebody I know online. Now, I've never really done anything. And I drew a portrait, and I drew another portrait. And so I have all these men. I call the collection now, it's a collection now. I call it the men of the diaspora, because there was something about the faces of black men that in that moment captured my heart. And so then it just started to grow. I think the only way I can explain it is that when I came home from Nigeria, I left a part of me there. Thus, like, I came out of the wigs and the weaves, and I locked my hair and pulled my locked hair out. And I left a part of myself there, but I found a part of myself that I didn't know existed. I found, for lack of a better term, I found my roots. I don't know what country my people are from in Africa. I have no idea. But to walk around a country for 30 days and see that everybody looks like you, that there's a dignity, that people are walking with their heads up. Some of the most hospitable people I've ever met, I met there in Nigeria. And I did not have to code switch for 30 days. For 30 days.
What is code switching?
You know how we do. We get in a mixed crowd of people, and then all of a sudden we become a little bit more of this, because we don't want to scare the white people. Don't scare. Oh, let me pull this back, because we don't want to scare the white people. Edit that out.
But I think we were taught that to survive.
Yes. Absolutely. It's absolutely a survival skill.
Especially if you're in Hollywood.
Oh my
want
God,
to be able
yes.
to get a job. So you don't want people to think, oh my God, I can't hire her. She would
What
be
we don't want them to
embarrassment.
think she's ghetto.
Yes.
You know, and I'm not ghetto, even though I was raised in what
Yes.
they consider the ghetto. My mother used to say, we don't live in the street, we live in the house on the street. So you will not be speaking this way, you will not be doing this. So I was raised a little different anyway. But yeah, it's something, like you said, it's a survival skill. It's something that we've been doing it so long, we're not even conscious of
And
it.
now they have a term for it.
It's code switching.
Used to be Oreo, you know.
Yeah.
So now we have a new term.
Yes.
Well, this has been fantastic. For those of you who want to find out about Faye Griffin, please, all the information is in the description. Check it out, and if you haven't already, subscribe to my channel. Hit the notification bell so you can get everything in real time, and leave us comments. I want to know what you thought of this, how it helped you. If you have questions, we'll be happy to come back and answer those questions. So thank you for watching us. And again, you are awesome.
You are
Don't let
awesome.
anybody take that from you. Go and be wonderful and fearless and unstoppable.